Welcome to our first of 3 videos just to help us with Jeremiah as we do RBT this month. Please watch 26th of Feb evening service because that was an overview of the whole book. As you go through Jeremiah, you'll realise and see he starts doing some weird stuff, what theologians and commentators call prophetic gestures. Basically what it is Jeremiah acts out what Jesus is doing in the church at different points in his ministry. And it's mostly because they're not listening to him. So they're not listening to Jesus' words. So he actually walks around and does all this different stuff as a picture to show them what Jesus is going to do or what he's already doing. One of these is Jesus tells him to get a linen belt and to tie it round his waist. But almost as soon as he's bought the belt, he's to take it off, find a place in a ravine and bury it and then leave it. And then ages afterwards, Jesus says, go back and find the belt. And when he does, of course it's spoilt because it's linen, it's dirty, it's messy, it's got holes in it, it's ruined. You can't wear it. It doesn't fit with anything. And Jesus says this, he says, as a church, I loved you so much. What I did was I picked you up and I tied you on me. I made you part of me. But you didn't want to be. You kept rebelling. You kept turning away from me. And so in the end, I'm going to have to take you off and ruin your pride. You've become proud of yourselves. Not proud to be part of me, Jesus says, but proud. You've got pride in your hearts. And that still applies to us today. We should never lose that excitement to be part of Jesus, to be tied into his life and share in everything he has. Think of a beautiful clay pot. It starts off as an ugly lump of clay with no shape, no colour, but it's cut, and then the potter takes hold of it and spends ages mashing it together, getting it soft and ready, then puts it on the wheel and spends ages shaping it and caring for it. It's such a fiddly job, I could never do it. And he takes such care. And then in the end, it's fired and then glazed and comes out in beautiful colours and looks incredible. And yet Jesus said to Jeremiah, I want you to buy a clay pot and go and smash it in front of everybody. You might think, what a waste. But it's a little picture of us. Jesus spends ages shaping us through all the circumstances in our lives. He speaks to us, he loves us, he takes care. And yet what had happened? The church had grown proud. They didn't want to listen to him. He was the potter, they were the clay, and yet they thought they knew better. And he said, he hated to do it, but I'm going to have to smash you to pieces unless you turn to me. Sometimes our lives feel like they're in pieces, and that's the reason why. Only Jesus can put us back together again. After the clay pot, Jesus tells Jeremiah to go and get a yoke. Now, we're not talking about eggs. We're talking about a yoke that would keep 2 big oxes pulling in a straight line down the field. And Jesus tells Jeremiah, I want you to put it on your shoulders. And it was heavy, massive piece of wood with chains on it. Put it on your shoulders and walk around. Walk around the town, walk around your house, walk around church, wearing this big yoke, this heavy wooden bar across your shoulders. Because Jesus said, I'm going to give all these countries, including the church, including Israel, over to Nebuchadnezzar. And you're going to have to bow under his power for a while because you've forsaken me, because you've left me. So Jeremiah had to act this out. And Jesus warned, if anyone tells you different, you're not to listen, they're a false prophet. And sure enough, Hananiah comes along, rips the yoke off Jeremiah and smashes it up. And he says, this is what Jesus says, within 2 years, Nebuchadnezzar's power is all going to be broken. But he's lying. He's a false Christian, a false prophet. And Jesus says, you may have broken that wooden yoke, but in its place, you're going to have an iron one. And Hananiah actually died later that year. So Jeremiah had to picture, look, if you turn away from me, Jesus says, It's like being a slave. It's like carrying around this heavy weight all the time. And we know that today. When we grow cold, when we sin, when we turn away from Jesus, it's like that burden comes back. But Jesus has the power to break our sin, the weight, the burden it has on us, and to set us free again. But it's not just acting out in a negative way that Jeremiah does. And we're going to leave on a massive positive. Because Jesus says, in a second, someone's going to visit you, Jeremiah, and they're going to offer you to buy a field, and you're to do it. And Jeremiah buys this field, takes the deeds, all the documents that says it's his, gets someone to seal it up in a clay jar and keep it so it doesn't rot. And the point of this is, Jeremiah is locked in the courtyard in the palace at that time because people hated him. And they're going to go off into exile, the church, for 70 years. But after that, this pot is going to be opened. After Jeremiah's life is finished, he has a piece of land that's going to be his, that's going to be bought and sold and is going to be fruitful. And it's the same with us. Jesus has sealed us beyond this life for the life to come by his Spirit. So that after this life has ended, no matter what might happen, whether we're exiled in it, wherever we might live, we are guaranteed a home with him where nothing perishes, spoils, or fades. And even though they go into exile in Jeremiah, there is hope beyond this. If they put their trust in Jesus, he will gather them back to him. And if we do the same as a church, he will carry on gathering us back to him forever.